again. So now we are on short story elements part 2. In part 1 we looked at plot, setting, but now it's important that we look at character. So character are people, animals, robots, etc. that are appearing in a story. Within these characters there are two types of characters, dynamic and static. Dynamic characters are those who are full of life. They go through a change, right? They change in some manner. They are the ones that we're drawn to. Static characters are the ones that don't change throughout the story. They are one-dimensional in a lot of ways. They just present themselves at the beginning in a certain way, and they stay the same at the end. Think of, for example, a dynamic character would be like Spider-Man, a superhero that undergoes a loss of some kind. In this case, Spider-Man undergoes the loss of his uncle, and so he then changes fundamentally and seeks to become a superhero. A static character could be like a sidekick, someone who is relatively one-dimensional, where like they just provide some jokes. It could be Peter Parker's best friend, who doesn't really undergo much change. He's funny in the beginning, he's funny in the end, he's there in the beginning, he's there in the end. Character roles: protagonist, antagonist, secondary, tertiary. Protagonists are the main characters in a story, novel, or play. Protagonists can be both positive or good people or negative people, bad people. A story can revolve around either of those. So do not confuse that, a protagonist is a good person. A protagonist can be the main villain, and the story revolves around the villain. And we're sort of, following the story behind a criminal mastermind. And the antagonist, the character that struggles or fights against the protagonist, can actually be the good person. So it can be the cop. Okay? So please understand that protagonist and antagonist do not mean that they are good or bad. Protagonist means the main character, antagonist means the character that goes against the protagonist. Secondary, it is the recurring characters but are of lesser importance. They are the subordinate characters. They have a minor role. They are like the best friend. They are the tutor, the mentor to that character, perhaps. Tertiary characters. They are characters that appear in one, perhaps two scenes for a specific purpose. So they are like soldier number 1, soldier number 4, who get killed on the beaches. Describing a character. So now that we understand what the types of characters are and the roles of characters, there are sort of two aspects of describing a character: physical attributes and character traits. Physical attributes are those that we associate with how a person looks, mannerisms that they have. Generally, they use your 5 senses. Right? They look at, for example, if a character is tall, fat, those kind of senses. Do they smell good? Do they, those kind of senses that we look and see and hear and so forth. A character trait, though, describes a person through their actions and thoughts. They can develop and change throughout the course of the story, generally speaking. So, please look at the below in the second part here, how to identify and analyze character traits. That emphasizes how important these 4 letters are, as you see in character analysis. SODA. These letters will help you analyze a character, but also just quotes in general, text in the future, and I'll explain how. First off, when you're looking at a character and you don't know what to say about them, well, think and ask yourself of the following letters. S. What the character says. So a character like Spider-Man says, I'm going to save someone. Well, we think that he may be heroic because he said he'll go save someone. O. What other characters say. So, for example, his aunt, his girlfriend say a lot of great things about him. He's intelligent, he's smart, so forth. But there are also other people who do not think of him very highly. And so how do our perceptions change as a reader due to other people saying things about Spider-Man? Third one, D, what the character does. Spider-Man not only said he'll save people, he actually swings into action, saves a bunch of people. His actions, what he does, make us think he's heroic? A, what the author says or describes. So this could be like back in the day, Stan Lee was creator of Spider-Man. How did he describe Spider-Man? What did he say? What did he do in terms of, from the narrator's perspective, describe and say, oh, Spider-Man swooped into action here and so forth. And from that description, we learn more about Spider-Man, and we are influenced by the author's words. So when you are stuck and you're looking at how can I say something more about a character or a quote, go through these 4 letters. That quote, you're drawing blank on, like, oh, why is this quote important? Well, what are people saying in that quote? What are other people around the situation saying about that quote? So this could be the paragraph before, the paragraph after. What is the impact of that quote? What the character does, and then finally what the author is saying or describing in that quote. So you can apply the same principles to analyze a character to analyzing a quote. And this is very important because when you eventually write big, long essays, you'll need to have the skill so that you can actually do a thorough job. Remember, English is very much like mathematics. I know some people don't think that, but it is. You're learning formulas, you're learning skills, so you can apply it. You're learning order of operations, you're learning basic formulas of how to apply this particular set to this particular problem. And the problem that we're going to encounter in the future is analyzing quotes and characters. So what I would like you to do for an activity to try is to pick a character. And what you're going to do is you're going to, let's say, don't pick Spider-Man, but hypothetically Spider-Man, what are 3 traits to Spider-Man or 3 traits to your character that you choose? And what is the evidence that you have? It's from someone who said something about him, or what the character does, or what the character says, and so forth. So your job is to find traits and then a piece of evidence. You'll see on page 3 here, there are a list of words that you should know for your everyday English. All these words should be in your vocabulary. So your job is to memorize all these words. If you don't know one of these words, add it to your personal dictionary so that you can have future usage. Some of these words are very simple. For example, the word brave, cold, but some words here are actually quite difficult. So for example, loquacious. What does that mean? Go and look up these words. Every single word that you don't know, add it to your dictionary so you can have a stronger vocabulary so that in turn you can be more accurate when you are describing a character or a situation. You're going to take 3 of these traits to apply it to the character that you chose. Lastly, what I would like you to do is not only to, you can also use this sheet here, but here it specifies picking a protagonist and an antagonist. You're using the adjective and then you're giving a reason for that adjective. So if you are picking Spider-Man and then you're picking Doc Ock as the antagonist, pick an adjective to describe both of them, like respectively, and then explain. Okay, so you have a few little exercises here to practice to learn these 150 plus words here, and so that you can understand this concept. Remember, we built up our knowledge on plot and setting. Now we're building on character. Later on, we'll be building on something else, conflict, and then we'll learn more and more. So we can have a common knowledge so we can analyze text together.